All right, here with Skylar Meade, second season head coach at Troy, but stops at South Carolina, Michigan State, Middle Tennessee, Eastern Illinois, played at Louisville. So Skylar, thanks for jumping on with me.
Absolutely. Excited to be on here.
Long time friend. It's good to get a friend
Absolutely,
on.
man. I remember all the cold indoor baseball camps we used to do, and I'd be running over there with pitchers doing whatever I was doing. You'd have infielders throwing for an hour. Guys' arms are hanging. Coach Brownlee made me throw too much. Like, hey, man, you want to be a good fielder, you better learn to throw.
The good old days. Yeah, and this is a pressing question. No left-handed catchers, because this is an inside joke of yours and I's, goes way back.
No doubt. Hey, listen, I don't know if we even talked about this, but after I was catching last year in our conference tournament and I wore 91 off the face when I missed it, I think that may have ended my campaign for lefty catchers after making that mistake. And thankfully I didn't lose all my teeth. I got a little Tom Brady here in the chin now from it, but I survived.
How'd you miss it? Did you just whiff it?
So it was funny. The kid who was throwing, he was a really good freshman for us. One of our weekend guys now. I was like, hey, Grayson, I know you struggled the last week. Let me catch you. Let's do a 10 pitch reset. So we had this little plan, and we were practicing at AUM, Auburn University of Montgomery, and it's kind of a weird background. And it's funny how things like you remember. We had a senior closer, really like sharp kid named Marquez Oates, and the first ball I caught, I kind of just like ducked my head. I just didn't see it great, but I caught it. It was fine, whatever. And he says, hey, do you want me to stand behind? Like, it looked like you didn't see that one well. I said, no, I'm good. It's just the first one. So he throws his pitches, breaking ball here, change here, heater here. And the last pitch, I said, hey, rise fastball. You're going to need this thing on, the first game against Coastal. And man, right when he threw it, I had my hand right here, just triggering up, and I never saw it. Hit right here, lip explodes, the whole deal. And
have you caught since then?
Immediately, what's that?
Have you caught since then?
I have. Now I wear a mask every time because my wife yells at me. But
and that's why I knew you were going to be good. We're in spring break. You're at Eastern Illinois, and you're warming your guys up. And I'm like, okay, this guy's got it. Because I liked doing the same thing. I liked getting back there and catching guys. But I saw you had a left-handed catcher's mitt on. I was like, yeah, this guy's got it.
Well, I tell you what, I have done a little bit less of it, but I tell you, I may have to get back in there a little bit this week and get some guys right. But like you said, though, I think there's nothing better for players when they know that like you're in there with them. And aside from that part, like I always felt just generally like I really do see what, hey, how is the rotation on the breaking ball? How does it appear potentially to the hitter? And I felt like I garnered a lot from that. I know everyone laughs. My last year at South Carolina in 21, I would not let anyone else catch the bullpens. I would catch the bull. We got Will Sanders, first rounder, Mahoney, and all these guys, but I like to get back there just because I needed to see that visual. So
arm speed.
I've scaled back a little bit.
I just liked it from you can see arm speed on off speed stuff. I just liked getting back there because you can see a lot more back there, especially from a hitter's view too. It's good to get back there and take a look at it, as long as you're not getting hit in the face.
As long as you're not getting hit in the face, you'd be correct on that.
Hey, what is it about like year 14 or 15 as an assistant where you kind of get that itch as maybe time to take over a program?
Man, that's a good question. I've always, and I wasn't naive when I started coaching at 22. Like I myself had always had aspirations of being a head coach. Some people do, maybe some don't, or some think they do and then they don't. I always had that aspiration, but I kind of always said in the back of my mind and to people kind of in my like close circles, like you want to find the right opportunity. Obviously you have to do a great job as an assistant. And I always focused on the job I had every day for 14 years. I wasn't like out seeking different things, but for me, as some certain things, maybe like you hear about or you get asked about, there wasn't anything that necessarily felt right or that maybe like got the juices going until this job in the summer of 21. And so when this thing kind of got going, the first time I got a call from Brent Jones, our athletic director, and you start hearing his vision and you dig into Troy. And I knew about Troy because I was in the Sun Belt with him in 2013 at Middle, and they were really good that year. They won 41 games in 2013, and Bobby Pierce had them going. You got to see the fan support here and things of that nature. And so I kind of had an inkling that this would be a a dream first head coaching job, and it's been nothing but that since I got it in July of 21. And we've tried to hit the ground running and do the very best we can to make Troy a national brand. And hopefully I think people are taking notice of what we've done so far.
How long has the stadium been there? Because I watched a little bit of your games against Evansville. You guys got after Evansville that weekend. Well, and that's not what I remembered Troy being. You know, we were down there, I think, in maybe 05 or 06 when I was with Iowa, and it looks completely different.
Yeah, I mean, this project that we have, I mean, it's $13+ million. So to kind of give you an idea, every seat that you saw, on TV, every one of them is now chair back. It's a little under 2,000 chair back. What you would see, and I'm not sure of some of the perspectives of the TV. Our TV views are pretty good here to see like the whole stadium, and it's totally. But up top, our new offices will go up on the third base side. Of course, there's TV press row, game day operations. Our chancellor will have a suite, and then on the first base side, there's a diamond club, which essentially is like donors and things of that nature. It's like bar style setup, TVs in the back. It's funny actually being gone for a week. I looked up and a lot of those have made tremendous progress over even just the last, 6-7 days. But all of that will be done by the end of this summer. The new scoreboard will go in before next year. And then we're doing renovations. The office I'm sitting in will become a meeting/media room. And then we'll renovate our locker rooms downstairs. So it's a full-fledged project. The stadium itself has actually been here for a while at Riddle Pace. It's really cool. It's the first thing you see when you get on campus. You may remember that from your time here. You come, right off the main drag, which is 231, which is a major highway that goes kind of straight down. But you hop off and, right when you look left, you see, Troy University, and the first thing you see is the baseball field. And so we're very fortunate that, from our chancellor, Dr. Hawkins has been here over 35 years, to our AD, Brent Jones. Like, when I was interviewing in this process, I knew this vision. I knew that this was something that was going to happen. Now to actually see it almost totally come to fruition is pretty cool.
Do you have a favorite spot as an assistant?
God, that's a good, it's funny. All of them have a certain spot. I'm not saying that just to be like,
different, all
correct,
different
if you will.
schools. I mean, you're at different places along the way.
I mean, I was 22 years old and I was a pitching coach, and I could recruit at a Division I school at Eastern Illinois. And heck, my first 2 years there, we won our league, went to NCAA tournament, which was like kind of crazy. Like, I had just played in Omaha in 2007 as a player, and then I'm coaching in a Nebraska regional in 08. Like, it was wild. Like, you couldn't make that up. But just to get the opportunity that, Jim Schmitz, I mean, I was 22 and you're like, hey, go coach the pitchers. Like, that's crazy that, I had that responsibility. Middle Tennessee State, I worked for, who I think is arguably the greatest person in baseball. Jim McGuire was just amazing. And that Middle Tennessee was in a transition going from the Sun Belt to Conference USA. Even as a school, it had been going through a large transition and growth. Murfreesboro was a town that was 65, 70,000 people in like 2005. I mean, you look at Murfreesboro now, it's almost 200,000 people. And a lot of that I know is Nashville spillover, but the reality is you were in a really cool, booming area. Got to coach some really talented players. It was short-lived. I got married during that time. So those 2 years were fun. Michigan State was a thing where I loved my time being a Spartan. It was really cool. You got really like ingrained in everything from the other coaches, how, Coach Izzo was, Coach D'Antonio. They were very like involved. We had an athletic director who was off the charts and very innovative, and we had a lot of success during my time there. Being ranked multiple times, the games we won, having, pitching staffs that were successful and players to go on. And a lot of them, and I say a lot, multiple guys, in the big leagues. And then, you get to go to that animal that is the SEC at South Carolina. And I think that's a dream for anyone to go there. And look, we're in the Sun Belt. It's one of the probably 4 best leagues in the country, but there's no mistaking what the best league is. It is the SEC. And so to get to do that for 4 years, really 3 and change with the COVID, but to get to experience that, and, you play those big time weekend series, whether it be at home or on the road, going in there to Arkansas in front of 14,000 people and, having to compete at the highest level against the best players that college baseball has was a lot of fun. I loved it. I don't look at it this way, but like the pressure cooker that it is, and how every game is overanalyzed and dissected, and the fans and the roller
Message
coasters.
boards.
Like, oh, I think if you're weak minded, you can get very exposed in that. And so I loved it. For me, I think it was massive preparation to what I'm doing now, which is being a head coach and being able to take those good days and bad days and stay steady. It's what we're going through even now, as you and I were talking pre-recording this, right? World's great. You're number 8 in RPI. You're rolling. Well, guess what? We had a bad week. It happens. It's baseball. You're never going to roll, right? Alabama football is always going to be more talented than whom they play. So therefore they win most of the time. Baseball, it's not that way. There's elements, there's your starter, there's injuries that factor into things that you just have to overcome and stay the course. And so, but I loved all 4 of my spots. I really did. The one thing I think that was funny, I've told people, and we were watching the game on the bus yesterday, I did get attached a little bit to Michigan State basketball and kind of what they do. And so
I've
that
said it
was
a
kind of,
lot when Jackson, my son, was growing up. Michigan State was the one team when they would come to Iowa City, I wanted him to go watch because of how hard they played. They've always
oh,
played hard.
they most certainly do. And I mean, there's a reason Izzo's a legend in terms of what he's done. So I did have a good time, seeing that part. But just as I had a great time, South Carolina with the sandstorm entrance that they have for football and things like that. So you take many memories and a million different things. What's great for me is everybody that I worked for or worked with, I stay in contact with. And those are people that are, close to my circle that you talk to when things go good, when they don't go good. And so I feel very fortunate in that regard.
And how much did you lean on the Louisville staff then? You get your GA job, and that's a great staff. I mean, they get there, you're on your way out, but that's a phenomenal staff to lean on, from a pitching coach with Roger Williams, recruiting with Lemonis. Like, I mean, it was a perfect storm for you, those guys
Oh,
showing up and then getting a coaching job.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's funny, like what had happened actually is we finished playing in Omaha, and Coach Mack and I talked about if I didn't continue attempting to play, um, hey, like you want to stay here and be a GA. Well, the rules had changed in 2007, and so you had some limitations. You could be a GA or go into it if you were the second assistant, like I did at Eastern Illinois. Well, at Louisville, of course, we had, like you said, Chris Lemonis, Roger Williams, and so the spot was different, and you couldn't do that any longer. So I remember Coach Mack calling me into my office 2 days after Omaha. He's like, "Hey, man, I messed up. These rules are different. How can I help you?" Essentially, and he knew what I wanted to do, and so we just kept our eyes and ears open. And fortunate twist of fate, Coach Schmitz had called Coach Mack, and they were connected through a guy named Rocco Bellantoni, who was the defensive coordinator for football at Eastern Illinois. Rock and Mac grew up together in New York and have been best friends for, I don't know, probably 45, 48 years. And so that conversation led to me talking to Schmitz, which led to me getting that job. So, of course, the Louisville guys were all very, very tight. But what Coach Mac's done for me, I talked to Coach Lemonis, and he's been a massive advocate for me, many times. Roger Williams, I don't think there's a better coach of talent in the history of college baseball. What he can do with a guy that's got skill, and then for him to take that skill and make it, honestly, a big leaguer is unprecedented. I just think he's so impressive and so steady, and he's done it for so long and been so consistent that, yeah, you can't ask to have a better group of guys to have been coached by for, 1 year. You always wish it was longer, but in the end, I think everything happens for a reason. You learn different things from whom you played for, whether it be 3 years, 4 years, assistant coaches. You just take it all together and join it, and it's probably all part of, like, now my, like, DNA as a coach.
Okay, you get the pitching staff. Okay, it's yours, Eastern Illinois. I mean, where did you start? Because you're coming from straight out of playing. I mean, where was the first place you started?
Well, I guess there was things that, number one, just in terms of, like, managing and taking care of a staff from a physical perspective, I felt like I had a decent idea because, I got hurt pretty bad in college. I had my whole shoulder reconstructed, and I got hurt in March of '05. Did not get to play again until February of '07. So I did feel, number one, just being healthy and being available was something that if I could at least lend some knowledge to a group of pitchers on that, number one, that would be great. Also, I did want to keep things at least simple in what we're approaching. Yeah, there's a lot of things we got to learn and do, but we really, really emphasized, our throwing, our long tossing, the things that were controllable, having a strong front side, landing clean. Like, I know it sounds so vanilla and boring in nature, but it's what we built our foundation on. And then, I think once you do all those things, you garner a lot of confidence, and then you learn the art of pitching. You start to throw your breaking ball harder. You start to learn how to implement your changeup. That was kind of the starting point. Where I was fortunate was, Sean Lyons had recruited some talented guys. The first staff I walked into, we were really young and really new, but there was talent, and so they just needed, some direction. And fortunately, they were able to follow in that, and we were able to have a lot of success, and a lot of those guys move on. But I did try to keep things really simple, and the thing that, we kind of touched on it at first, I never, of course, I am their coach and have to, keep people in line, but I don't coach to have authority. I coach because I like to connect with people, and I love the ability to go out on a given day and win or lose. Losing sucks. I hate it, like anyone, but I like that we have that ability, and coaching provided that to me. And so I never went about it like, hey, I'm going to coach so that I have authority or power to tell you something. And I think people knew that, even though there was players that were as old or older than me, they knew that I was just, hey man, I'm just in the foxhole with you. Let's do anything and everything we can to be better. And if we do that together, don't take anything personal. You know that we're trying to get the best out of you, point blank.
Yeah, Michigan State, you and I coached at colder weather places. Did you manage pitch count early in the year any different? Maybe because they're inside a little bit more and maybe not able to get out as much. I know Big Ten facilities, you're able to stretch it out, but did you manage their pitch count much different than what you are now in some warmer weather places?
No, that's a really good question. I would say I think it was a little different, but I think maybe for different reasons per se. I think if you look back to, let's just say Michigan State, so which is 15 to 17 for me, I think there was a little bit because there's something different to be said for when you're outside than maybe inside, throwing live in cages and stuff like that. And look, the Big Ten has amazing facilities. So, I mean, you get to be very prepared. I think what you see with Northern teams many times, how disciplined they are because of the constraints that you have sometimes with the weather and being inside. But where I think things have maybe slightly changed just a smidge is you look back 8, 9 years ago, there was still a little bit of the, hey, there's different shutdown periods. We rest the arm. And now that's changed a lot. I attribute a lot of it. I remember in I think it was 15 or 16, a Max Scherzer article talking about his offseason throwing. And I had a buddy who was in the big leagues and is really close with him at the time. And he had started changing his offseason throwing. And so now you kind of change how rest periods are. Rest periods are still active movement, a little bit of throwing. Yeah, it's not, hyper intense, but you throw more. And because of that, I think the length that guys go into the season with is a little different. Now, what does that mean? I think at Michigan State, the opening weekend, my first year, I think I had guys where I'm like, hey, man, you're about 70, 75 pitches. Now the first weekend, they're like 85. It's not that different in nature, but it is a little bit more. But I don't know if it's for the reasons of the weather. It's probably more now just the transition and how we're training the arms a little bit. Because I think we saw some of the negatives that maybe were going on from people going totally cold turkey. So I hope that answered your question. I know
you hit it.
It's a little bit of both, which is kind of I think it's just an evolution like we see in everything. It's like when certain pitches come back, the cutter got real popular for a while. Changeups are coming back. Like two seams were out. Now two seams are back in.
A sweeper's a slurve, right? A sweeper, they're calling it, it's a slurve, correct? That's what the sweeper
Correct.
is? Yes.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it is. So everything, you know how it is, man. Everything's cyclical.
How much are they going at it in the fall? Are you stretching guys out in the fall? Are you treating it just like the spring when you're inter-squadding or you're playing somebody else? Are you letting your starters go a little bit longer? Because I think I've seen that a little bit more in the fall too, is where guys are maybe going a little bit longer.
I have not, and it's one of those things I debate with myself, or even just talking to other coaches or my staff for that matter. I have not. Like this past fall, we didn't have any of our guys go beyond 3. I don't know if that's right or wrong. Some of it's based on your clientele and what they do. We had a really good lefty arm, for example, who we weren't sure, is he a starter, is he a reliever? but he also went in JUCO and threw like 70 innings. Then he threw another 25 in the summer. That's also probably 15 in the preparation of the season. And so we never went beyond 2 with him. Is that right or wrong? I don't know, but I sit there sometimes in the fall and you get that 45-day window. We're fortunate here at Troy, it's warm. So we go, this year we went September 25th to November 10th. I look at it in the sense of I need to see him compete. I need to learn some things, but do I want to learn that in a 75 pitch setting, or do I want to learn that in a 35 and then still have the ability to work and control rather than their whole week being about recovery? So I don't know, how I may alter. I still think maybe looking forward, I may extend a little bit more, but maybe not as much as some others do at times. But that doesn't make what they're doing wrong. It's just maybe a bit of a personal preference, because I still want that ability. If we throw a guy on Monday in a game, let's say he throws 3 innings and he goes, 47 pitches. I can work with him Wednesday. His arm will be, recovered enough where we can start work. Hey man, let's get the hand on the baseball a little bit more. All right, I don't want to go hard on the cutter here, but let's throw 10 in a flat. Let's get that thing. Whereas if he throws 75, 80 pitches, he may be banged up till Friday. And we really all we did was get stronger and maybe more mobile Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
So with a guy like that, where you're not sure in the fall, what his role is going to be, did you then start him some inter squads and then throw him out of the bullpen in some inter squads?
Yes, we actually try to do that with all the guys. It's kind of a similar concept, and I'm not sure. I bet you did this. I know Coach Wolgamon here likes to do it. We try to move around our infielders, just different spots. Yeah, we may be like, hey, like Johnny over here is going to be the shortstop. We know it, but we'll still move him around just to get some different perspective and some different skills. We do the same thing with our arms. The only alteration, if maybe there's a guy that we're trying to develop something from a mentality standpoint. If we go, hey man, this guy can only be a closer, and we're going to make sure he throws the last inning of every game so that all eyes are on him. The day begins and ends with him, right? We may do something like that. Or if there's a guy that we think needs to be motivated as a starter, we may. But 95% of the time, we're going to try to bounce him around and see him do some different things.
I mean, how much do you get a feel on a kid's personality? Because not every kid can start, not every kid can close. So how much do you get a feel on somebody's personality where, okay, this might be more his skill set from a mentality standpoint?
Yeah, I don't think you ever get that totally until you get to the season. Unfortunately, it's why sometimes you laugh. The narratives and things that we think we learn in the fall or even the preseason, none of them are right. Some of them are, but I will say, getting the ability to play some outside competition, I think just even that change of pace sometimes can show you a thing or two on some guys, which is nice. I remember even to just our fall game, some of the things that we did. And to be quite frank, some of the things that maybe concerned us in those little snapshots have come to fruition. Then there's also a couple things that we had tried or we had, manipulated for a couple individuals, and we go, oh, okay, this thing got better. But I don't think you ever totally know until the spring. There's always guys that they get that white light fever one way or another. They turn into a different guy against another team, or they turn into a different guy, and you go, oh, I don't like that guy. And so it's unfortunate, but I just think you can never create the competition that happens from outside opponents. Because in the end, too, like I've said this ad nauseum, our players would laugh if they hear this, but the easiest thing in the fall and the preseason is, oh, I'm throwing the third and fourth. Oh, I'm in the lineup because we're playing 18, 20 guys. They know they're playing. But then when, like you said, when we played Evansville, first game of the year, there's only 9 guys in the lineup. And right now, one guy has the ball in his hand. And so when you look at it like that, it does kind of change the dynamic a little bit.
And you also need to move guys around in the fall, too, because you never know with injuries. Like, the last thing you want to do is throw a kid somewhere where he hasn't been in 6 months, 7 months, especially with your new guys. So you're prepping for just hopefully injuries don't happen, but they do. So you're kind of prepping to just in case we've got to move some guys around for injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in my career, this year is the most injuries, and a lot of them they're not even of the normal. Hey, sometimes we have injuries, we had arms go down. Unfortunately, it's what happens in this day and age. Ours aren't so much of that. We've had a lot of things that are, we got a guy with a non-throwing arm injury who's a pitcher. We had a foul tip, broken thumb. We got a hammy. We unfortunately had a guy get hit with a line drive. We just had weird things. And as you said, you can't prepare for that. That's why depth is paramount in college baseball. And that's why recruiting is still the lifeblood of any program. You have to have players. It's still like Coach Tang said of Kansas State basketball yesterday. You got to have dudes. If you get dudes, if you get enough of them and you have the dude and then a backup dude and another backup dude, okay, you'll find a way. It's when you get thin and guys are asked to do maybe more than they're capable of at that given time. That's when you can run into problems.
Are you still recruiting as much as you did as an assistant now that you're head coach?
I am. My wife sometimes gets mad about that, but I just think that, well, I don't think, I know this. I mean, I got this job because of really two things. I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of success as a pitching coach, and people know that I recruit and will work. And everybody works, but, I'm fortunate to have connections in a million different spots, and I'm not afraid to, whether it be hop on a plane or ride in a car and go somewhere. I mean, you look a couple weeks ago, the first day that you could recruit, we played, UAB, won a tough battle, long game. Game took way too long. Get home at like 11:30 at night. I'm in the car at 6:30 a.m. driving to Mississippi to go watch JUCO games all day. 4-hour drive, no reception, back roads, and I'm doing that because I know that we have to keep getting players, and I'm not going to change. Like I've not changed as a head coach. I was an assistant, and I'm still myself. I don't do anything different. The only difference is I have to be the one to stand up in front of the room and give the messages of good, bad, and different and whatnot. But I've not changed my DNA, and so I'm certainly not going to change how I recruit.
And I was going to ask you that. You've always been a high energy coach. I mean, has that been with you forever?
Yeah, I just someone, and it's funny you talk about Coach Lemonis. One of the things he said to me just initially in coaching, and then the day I got the job here, I remember his phone call vividly. He said, "Hey man, when he met me, okay, this is a little funny story. It'll come full circle, but I was coming off shoulder surgery and I was just trying to find a way to like find myself, and so I was about 15 months out. New coaching staff got hired at Louisville, and I was rehabbing. I would work at a hotel from 4 a.m. to noon every day. Then I would rehab and I would lift. And then laughable, I got into tennis that year because I played tennis right-handed, so it didn't mess up my arm. I'd play tennis every night with a group of people from 6 to 8, and then I would rinse and repeat. So anyways, I was in our facility at Louisville on a Friday night. It was like 11 at night, and I was doing a throwing session. I had a hitting dummy set up. I had a thing of 60 baseballs, and I'm throwing into a wall, and the wall thuds really loud. Well, it's 11 at night, so I don't think anyone's, around, so I could care less about the sound. Well, as I'm throwing, I hear a door open, and I'm like, oh my God, like who's coming in here? Like, is it like some maintenance person? And this guy walks in, and he's got a big smile and bright white teeth. I'm like, and I don't know our new coaches. I met Coach McDonald the day before, but I don't know him. So I don't know our other guys. You got to remember, this is pre-Twitter. You don't know how everyone looked, And this guy walks right up, 11 o'clock at night, says, "You have to be Skylar." And I'm like, "Yeah, how'd you know?" He said, "Well, if someone was doing dumb stuff at the facility late at night, heard you got a good motor." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I guess that's a compliment." So full circle, 15 years later, I remember him telling me when I got the job, he goes, "Hey man, you got the job because of who you are and how you go about it. Don't change for a second." And so that's easy for me, to just be myself, because I can live with it. I've known you for a long time. You're the same. You've been the same way, and you're always a consistent, positive person in what you do. And I think people resonate with that because there are a lot of people, and not, this isn't maybe a baseball thing, but just in general, that they live a roller coaster, I don't want to do that. Yeah. Do I get down for a second after a loss? Yeah. Do I maybe ride a emotional high after a win? Well, of course, it's human nature. But in the end, like, we have to be who we are. I'm a high energy person. I love what I do. I still haven't had a bad day in 38 years. Had bad moments, we all have bad moments, but I've not had a bad day. And so I have to be that way because I think your players, they sniff out fake really quick.
Do you feel like that's what gets guys in trouble the most, or any coaches, is they end up changing what their strengths
Yes.
are because they feel like they have to change?
I'm just not going to do that. Hey, like I said, I'm the same idiot that 10 months ago was wearing a fastball to the face as a head coach, having Gary Gilmore laugh at me at home plate saying, well, you're something, man. So I'm going to be that way. I used to have a joke when I first started coaching. I was like, I want to be the best athlete on the field till I'm about 58, so.
Well, I always remember you and Spencer, we'd be working those winter camps, and you and Spencer Allen would be doing those hit workouts. I'd be trying to just get something in, and you guys would be going at it with your hit workouts.
Yeah, no, man. Hey, Spencer's an animal in that weight room, man. But in the end, man, like that's who I am. That's probably something that just is in your DNA as a person. And I feel like it sounds like way more than it is, but I'd be doing a disservice to myself if I acted any different, and if you ever have a moment of that, you have to catch yourself, you have to catch yourself. Like all coaches or people go through, hey, we had a rough week. I got back last night. What did I need to do? I was hanging out with my wife. We got back at a decent time. I was sitting there. Eventually you kind of catch yourself in a la land. And you go, hey, I need something aside from sports. And you put on a show, you decompress for 28, 30 minutes, boom, you get yourself reset.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what are your kind of go-tos there to kind of help, good or bad? It's going to be good and bad during the season that help you kind of get ready for the next day.
Well, I have two kids, a 7 and 4-year-old. And so obviously they can be maniacs sometimes. Anyone in Troy could attest our kids can be not the most well-behaved at times, but they're very entertaining. So, getting to kind of do some things with them is fun. My wife was an athlete, so she totally gets it. I mean, she's in a high, quote, high stress job. She's president of a company called Power Solutions. So, she's in a 98% male business as a female president. So she's got different things on her plate, that I think relate very well to a head coach in a high level program as Troy is. And so, but what we do sometimes is eventually, like at night, you're kind of sitting there, you just got to get away. We'll find a show or something that has nothing to do with sports. And this is the good or bad, but her and, she and I, we're so invested. Most of the time on TV, we have college baseball on. We love to watch it. It's accessible any and every day, it seems like. But sometimes you need to go, you know what? Let's go throw on Ted Lasso or some other show.
Shrinking's really good, by the way. If you haven't watched Shrinking, that's Jason Segel and Harrison Ford.
Just watch the 9th episode.
It is hilarious.
I think that show's going to win a lot of awards. I was just having a conversation with Coach
really
Wolgamar about it.
So funny.
And Harrison,
it's laugh out loud funny.
God, Harrison Ford's so good in that.
Yes.
But that's what we do. That's what you have to do. I can only stare at videos so much. I have a note sheet right here of a million things. These answers, they're going to be there. They're, you got to just sometimes go, hey, man, I got to take a TO. It's like hoops, man. It's like Coach Izzo does. You got to call a 20-second timeout sometimes, and that's how you're going to get yourself back to ground zero.
Have you picked up anything from her? I mean, she basically head coaches now are CEOs. Have you picked up anything from her on the business side that maybe has helped you on the coaching side?
Yeah, it's actually fun. One of the biggest things is just like, if you have something that you have to do that maybe you don't want to do, it's human nature to like want to be like, I'm going to wait a sec. What I've kind of got from her and just like listening to, her schedule or her, like grouping of events she has on a day, she has like conference calls or follow-ups and things of that nature. I try to make sure that like I immediately attack things to get any burden of things like off your shoulders as fast as you can. And I think when you do that, and I'm not telling you I'm perfect, I'm not batting 1,000 on it, but when you have that mentality, I think you feel better about, going through the whole day because you've actually accomplished something. And it's kind of like,
I call it a to-did list. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Check off stuff you did. Like, I think when you see that, okay, I had a list of things that I need to get done, and I think you you end up developing that positive mentality. Is like, okay, I maybe didn't want to do that, but I'm checking it off anyway. I got it done. I just think it helps huge mentality.
Of course, it's like working out like first thing in the morning. Like many times, just for myself, some people are better at different parts of the day. I remember it's funny. I always one of my really good buddies, and I know he's not in coaching right now, but his track record was incredible. But Chad Kaye, I'd always laugh with Chad because Chad would laugh at me. I'd be like, "Hey, I'm gonna work out 5 or 6 a.m." and Chad'd be like, "I ain't." He's like, "I'll work out at 5 o'clock and go get his Chipotle after." But guess what? It worked for him. You got to know yourself, and so I couldn't operate that way, but he couldn't operate my way, and so you just have to kind of know yourself. But I've really learned that, I think, like just watching like my wife, what she does on a day in day out basis, and then just also having one who she played 4 years college basketball at Radford. She went through ups and downs. I know it's different sports, but you go through the same stuff. You really do. That's why athletes generally flock to athletes. I don't mean so much in just marriage, but just in general. Like you can bounce things off, and that's why you'll see crisscrossing of people who are friends in different sports. And I mean, heck, here, I talk to Coach Cross, our basketball coach, all the time. We bounce things off left and right. John Sumrall, who had his first year as a head coach in football, like he's been great. Coach Rigby, who's arguably the most successful coach here on campus, won 5 titles in 9 years with women's hoops. All these people, like, they go through the same things, and maybe they see a slightly different lens that I see maybe as a head coach, but you just have to talk to those people because you're going to learn things even when you're not even seeking them.
Was Ben your first call when you got the job as far as coming to work?
Yeah, he was already on the way. No, we always knew. You know how tight we are. It was a very simple deal that if it was fortunate enough to have this happen, where I got a job, that we were going to go in there and we're going to attack this thing together, and that's what happened. And so it was really a simple deal. Our kids are friends. His wife Maggie and my wife Jess are incredibly close. They do things all the time. Just really fortunate. My first coaching staff that I had last year. One of my other assistants, Coach Godwin, is a Hall of Famer here at Troy. Very talented, very connected in the state. I had a pitching coach named Riley McCauley, who helped me with pitchers who actually the Phillies hired away after his first year, which I think is pretty cool. I had another assistant who was a GA named Landon Langston, who the Braves hired away this offseason. And so I got my first coaching tree going out now, which is kind of hilarious. But just brought in great guys. My operations guy came from South Carolina. He was one of our managers, and I just respected the hell out of what he does. And he's my operations. And had a guy, Drew Dickinson, who tell me about a guy they had at Virginia named Joe Bukowski, and now he's my player development guy. Like, just having good people in our building, having people that you trust and you can go to bat with, like, that's what we wanted to make sure that we created here, and I think we've done a really good job. And when I lost my guy to the Phillies last year, the first call I made was to another guy that pitched for me in Michigan State named Ethan Landon, and got to lure him out of the business world, and he's got to come here and do a really good job with us. So I want people that I can trust, people that I buy into more as a person than maybe somebody that knows a certain X and O at some crazy level. Yeah, I mean, we all know our stuff, but I want people that can connect with people, because if you connect with people, you'll connect with players.
And I was going to ask you who's helping you with the pitching a little bit to take a little bit off your plate, because that's not an easy thing to do as a head coach, is to handle the pitching staff also. So I was going to ask you who's taking a little bit off your plate from that.
Yeah, so Riley McCauley did it last year with me, and he was tremendous, and that's why the Phillies lured him away. I was hoping to get 2 years from him, but I was only able to get 1. But then Ethan Landon now, who I have, he's doing a really good job. He's a great connector. He's a guy that he could be a senator if he wanted to. He's sharp, good looking, tall guy. Got the ability to meet people and they immediately want to click with him. And so I'm sure there's times where I'll probably evolve in how I go about the head coach to handling the pitchers, and because I know there's a different feel, whether I want to believe it or not. Sometimes there's a little different feel when the quote head coach comes around, and I'm aware of that. I don't want to believe that because I don't look at myself any different, but I do understand that there's a different sense probably sometimes, a different heightened awareness which can be good or bad, right? Some guys need that, and some guys it pressures them up a little bit. And so, you try to find a balancing act of that. I would not sit here and tell you that what I'm doing today is exactly how it'll go a year from now, 2 years, 4 years, 8 years from now. But in the end, I want to still make sure that I stay attached to them because I know I'm good at it, and I know that that's what they need most of the time. But I also have to know sometimes you got to give a step back too.
You calling pitches?
I am, yeah, I am.
Are you guys using PitchCom?
We use the watch. We use a game day signals watch, and then we still have the headset with the catcher. So essentially, my left hand, I'll hit a number and boom, 1-1 fastball away while I'm in there saying, hey, fastball away. So it's been great. I think that.
By the way, I stole wave fastball from you. We called it a 4-zone fastball or a 4-zone breaking ball if we wanted it in the other batter's box, because I stole that from you because it's basically a modified pitch out.
Yeah, absolutely.
The catcher's basically in the other batter's box, modified pitch out.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had one of those work this weekend, a little wave fastball, little 1-3 is what we call it on our thing, and fortunately timed it up and got the guy thrown out. So, it's I think this stuff is good, this technology. Yeah, you worry sometimes because there's little glitches. It was funny when we were playing Evansville. This weekend was cold, but we only had one cold weather game this year, and it was the opening night. It was so windy and cold, it was tripping up our watch system a little bit. So, I'll use this example, like my phone's in my hand, but I would look down. I hadn't even hit a number, and numbers were flashing up, and then they were flashing to the pitcher on their watch, and I wasn't touching anything. And I think it was just one of those weird deals that kind of goes on where maybe like technology gets messed up in the weather. But aside from that, it's been a tremendous success both for us and I think for college baseball.
And with the pitch clock now, I mean, you have to be able to get things in quicker now. You have to.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing it does too, I think it cleans up part. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's wild pitches. There's mistakes in college baseball. But, I mean, think how many times, a guy's doing a tap system or something and they call it in and a guy gets crossed up and ball's flying in the backstop or it's flying in the face mask of the umpire. That's not good for anybody. Now there's no way you can mess it up. Fastball in, guy looks on here, fastball in, boom, you go out and you throw it.
What do you feel like some of the other technology out there's helped change things in the last 10 years?
Well, I mean, certainly just, the TrackMan and Rapsodo and stuff just to allow, our eyes always told us things, right? And recruiting, we can all go see a breaking ball and go, wow, that thing spins pretty good. And let's be honest, 99% of the time the data co-aligns with that. But I think what you see is just this advanced video or advanced data. It allows you to maybe a more detailed way of confirming things that you tell people. And so, for example, we had an arm the other day that, like, hey man, I think you're dropping your arm. And I know that sounds like old school, but he was a slinger guy. I'm like, I think you're getting here on the ball rather than here. And I'm just telling you, I see it with my eyes. We're going to look at the video. We're going to check mark it and see, well, his hand was about 5.5 inches on average lower on a certain pitch. And look, I'm not saying that to make me look smart. It's what we all kind of do and kind of see. But now we had the video and the TrackMan data to confirm where that release point was exactly. There's no debating. We can look at the data points and go, hey man, this was at 10 inches when you were good. This was at 15, whatever the numbers were. And now I think it allows players to almost, I think they can. The
trust is there a little bit more. Not that they didn't trust you in the past. You just have more concrete data to be like, hey, here's exactly what it is, and this is what it is.
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, you got to sometimes go, hey man, I'm not sure on this. I don't know. Let me look at it again, But I think sometimes there can be a little bit of a beauty in that because, hey man, sometimes like what we're seeing, it may have nothing to do with the data points. It might be the fact that, hey, your front shoulder comes open a little early and they just see you. Like, all right, how are we going to change that? Are we going to go old school with a drill to stay closed? Or are we gonna move on the mound? Like, what are we gonna do? Because you can have all this data, and sometimes you don't have the answers. You still have to have the feel and that little Midas touch, if you will, to make sure you get the most out of guys. But I think all this technology is good. I'm not one that thinks there's any part of it that's bad for the game. I don't think we need to obsess over every single thing. But I also think it validates many of the opinions that we have, or it can unvalidate something too. You're like, oh wow, like that was not exactly what I thought, but okay, now at least I have concrete evidence of what it is.
When are you switching guys on the rubber? And when are you
And
moving guys?
I think
I
for
was an
me, one
arm
of the
side
biggest.
guy, but I'm a throwback. I liked when guys were on the arm side of the rubber. I thought it cleaned a
I
lot of
think
things up.
I do too. It's funny. I think I will tell you this, a trend I've seen, especially the last 3 to 4 years, everybody comes in where they're on the opposite side. So righties are on the first base side, lefties are on the third base side, which is contrary to what you kind of were told a long time ago. But for me, when I think there's a problem, I generally look at it. Yeah, I mean, the fastball angle certainly plays, but where I really see it is if a guy constantly misses his breaking
Yes.
ball to a side,
Yes.
and you're going, hey man, you're missing 12 to 15 inches left, right? Yes, sir. Okay. Well, you're on the left side of the rubber? Yes, sir. Okay. Well, how
How
are we gonna
much
get
of the
this thing in the
plate do
plate?
you have none of the plate to work with?
And so, are you as a righty? Are you going to throw, like we were joking, the sweeper slur? Well, no, coach. I throw a hard one and it bores. Okay. Well, why not throw it here? Let the hitter see it middle, and then it darts, but it's still on the plate where it can also be a strike. That to me is a big signifier of what you need to do, as well as maybe if you're a guy that doesn't have a great breaking ball, you could at least make a compelling argument that you need to be more in the middle to the arm side if maybe you're a fastball changeup guy. You can make the same argument in reverse, but I am amazed how many guys don't do the way that we always would talk about. I was a first base side of the rubber as a lefty, so like we did it to create a little more angle, a little more,
And they can see the opposite hitter's back foot. That was the thing that I felt like it opened up the back foot breaking ball, the back foot slider way more for guys because they could actually see the back foot and they're not going to hit guys with it then.
I think I think it's a great point. I think it's a great point. Look, baseball is a game of angles, right? Like it's like when you talk about hitters, man. If your hand's doing this, okay, you're not in the zone long. Oh, okay, I'm here. Like everything is angular in nature, and so I think pitchers forget that sometimes. They don't realize what a massive change that can create. Heck, I remember a guy, Danny Lloyd, I had a couple years ago, Carolina, good draft pick in Double A with the Orioles now. And honestly, the biggest change we made when he had good velocity, good stuff, but he had a cutter that was really good, and we just flipped sides of the rubber. Everyone's like, "What'd you do with Lloyd?" What? We just moved on the rubber. Yeah, but what else? Come on, give me the tricks. No, we just moved on the rubber. you know, sometimes it can be. The other thing it can do is you go out and you have a good outing because you change something, and then that confidence spills, and that one's two, and that two is four, and then it goes on and perpetuates. And I know that's a big conversation we were having with our team just over the last week or so. Is that what you guys sometimes forget is confidence breeds confidence. So don't be afraid to make an alteration, and once you do, you'll steamroll positively with it and have success.
And sometimes you got to fake confidence too. That's just part of it. You got to talk yourself into it sometimes. Like it's not always going to go your way. You've got to play those mental games with yourself sometimes. Talk yourself through it.
Oh, there's no doubt. Well, it's the old, if I'm walking into a room to talk to the good-looking girl, how should you walk in? Do you have any chance if you walk in and your shoulders are shrugged, or if you walk in with some bravado and confidence? Well, you have to do it every single time. You may get no's, but eventually you might get a yes. But you're never going to get a yes if you walk in like a bum, And so I think the same thing goes for, baseball and hitting. You're going to fail more times than you succeed. So you better maximize your success as a pitcher. All eyes in the stadium are on you. I told this to a player one time, an outfielder. We were talking about some pitchers having a little bit of ego and being selfish, and I said, well, they better. I said, they stand on the mound. Everyone at the game stares at them. They don't stare at the people in the outfield. No offense, outfielders are important, they're totally invaluable, but they don't go there and go, dude, I was staring at left field today. Whoo, you should have seen him stand. No, they talk about the pitcher. So you have to have that. You have to have that aura and that confidence to go out and be successful, just as you said. And if you don't, you better fake it until you actually get it.
Have you changed much with your throwing program? I love your throwing drills. I've always loved your throwing drills. Have you changed? Have you tweaked much with it, with your throwing program?
Not the bare bones of it. Um, I think there's some guys a little more. And I don't know if this is just one of those cyclical things. Like maybe it's a facility thing. Maybe it's if you have some more guys from the north, which we do have some northern arms. There's some guys that maybe aren't as keen on long tossing as much, and they want to just kind of keep it on a rope. Which hey, if you have the velocity and stuff like that, you're going out and practicing intent, like that's fine. But no, I mean, we still emphasize the same things. We still do a lot of the, heavy front side drills. We still do some balance at the end on the front foot. I think any great pitcher has front foot balance. We'll do a lot of the hip angle things that, we talk about the knee to shoulder angle relationship. A lot of the things that we do are very, very similar. Sometimes where I guess maybe I maybe
Hey, how do
slightly
you
tinker
clean up
this.
front foot balance? I mean, we talk about staying good feet to feet. How do you clean that up if somebody's not as stable on their front foot as they need to?
I think so. One of the things we started doing a couple of years ago was making them hold it for like a 2 or 3 count. And I think that you have to, let me backtrack. You obviously have to have good direction. You have to have good hip direction in terms of where you're going. And everyone needs a stride either straight or probably slightly closed. I know there's pitchers in the world that go open, but it's very rare. And it's one of those where there's a 1-2% who can do it. But generally speaking, most guys are slightly closed or straight on, right? But when we have our guys try to hold their finish, if their front foot is open, so if I'm a lefty going to you and I'm landing with my foot like this, I'm not going to be able to hold that finish. My groin and my hips and my hammy are going to not let me be in that balance point. But if I can land flush with a slight angle, we talk about landing at 11 o'clock as a left-hander, a righty would land at 1 o'clock. If I can get in that position and then torque my backside through and get my hand over my lead knee or my lead quad, then I have a chance to hold that position, block my front leg, and then have balance. And so I think sometimes the drill can expose you even more and then help you to tinker with making it right. But I think that initial like hip direction, I think guys sometimes they want to like jump into that landing, and what they don't realize is the first thing they do is they open up. And as soon as you open up, you lose all of your power, and you also lose your deception, and all of those things are bad to lose. It's just like a hitter, if that front shoulder goes like we heard of for
Counter
100 years.
rotation.
If I'm
The
here and
best
I'm
counter
not,
rotate the best.
absolutely, it's like, I'm not saying you're going to be like a golfer, but if you're not here, first movement's here, you're done. You're like a one spot guy, and whether that be a pitcher or hitter, like I think your direction it's paramount in what you do.
Using core velocity belt.
So I've used it some. I haven't used it a ton, but I've had some guys. I had a guy a couple of years ago named TJ Shook who really enjoyed it. We had Brandon Jordan, 2 guys that are AA with the Brewers that really liked it. But then there's some guys it doesn't resonate with. We had always done actually a variation with some Jager bands. Not exactly the same, but kind of the same concept, both pulling and creating force, and then also pulling force forward. But I think the concept's really good, and I think it really works for some people to get that energy moving in the right way.
Hey, that '07 Louisville team, when did you guys know you're going to be good?
That's a really good question. There was a singular game in our season that we thought we were good. Um, we had we'd had a crowds had never been really great at Louisville. We'd moved into the new stadium in '05, and we were just okay. '06, we were just okay. Uh, they had started doing dollar beers, dollar dogs on Fridays. So we started getting bigger crowds. Then in '07, obviously we had a different feel. Coach Mack had perpetuated this confidence that was unique to our group, and we had a bunch of guys return from injury. Myself, Boomer Whiting, who led the country in steals, Chris Dominguez, who ended up being a big leaguer. We had some new guys who were talented. We had some guys come out of nowhere to be really good players. but we had in April. I remember we had a great crowd on Friday night, and we beat West Virginia in a really good Friday night game. We whipped them pretty good on Saturday, and then we had a real battle on Sunday, and we had to come back. And I can remember we won the game. There's a really good crowd on Sunday, which was kind of rare, if we're being honest, for that point in time in Louisville baseball. And I think it made us be like 22 or 23-9. And I just remember it was one of those where you say, hey, I think we have a pretty good team. I remember eating food at Beef O'Brady's with a bunch of teammates after the game, and guys like Zach Pitts, who was our Friday guy, Logan Johnson, All-American second baseman, Chris Cates, our shortstop. And I remember, like, you're just going, I think we got enough pieces to be good. Now, did we know we were going to make a run to Omaha and be one of the hottest teams in the country? Anyone that says that to you is lying. Because you don't think that way. You think very singular in nature and whatnot. But when we did that, and then when we went through our regional run, I it's kind of funny because you wouldn't think this is the case, but we beat Miami the first game, and we ended up losing the second game to Missouri. And Missouri was number 3 in the country, and they were legit. But beating Miami, that national brand, and we beat them really good the first game. I think it was one of those where we knew we could play with anyone. And so we had to come back and beat Miami. When we had beat them a second time to knock them out, that was the first time they had not gone to a Super or Omaha in 15 years. And I think that provided a different level of confidence as you're going through the battle that is NCAA tournament. And so, we had to beat Missouri twice and won an incredible Sunday night game that'll always go down, I think, in at least Louisville Cardinal history. And then we, beat the heck out of them 16-6 on the Monday to go to the Super. And fortunately, we hosted. And fortunately, our team was very tough. And I've told the story many times. We won 9-0 game 1. Game 2, you got almost 6,000 people in Jim Patterson Stadium. We have our closer, Tristan Magnuson, who ended up pitching the big leagues on the mound. We're up 3-2 in the ninth inning, 2 outs, 2 strikes. You're like, you're going to Omaha, right? Like, oh my gosh, we're going to Omaha. And he throws a pitch, and the guy hits it to left. Our left fielder, Isaiah Howes, had a 44-inch vertical, and he jumps over the wall, and it nicks his glove, nicks it, and goes out of the stadium. We lose in 14 innings. And I tell the story, and I'll probably tell our team at some point, you are one pitch, 1 second, 1 moment from dogpiling to, oh my gosh, we have to play another game, and it might be over. And fortunately, we had a very, very tough group of guys who had been through a lot of things. And we went out and boat raced Oklahoma State, won 20-2, and we, flew our way off to Omaha. But
did you have a team book that year? Did you guys have?
We did not have a team book that year. We had a team motto. Our team motto was "Why not us?" Pete Rodriguez, one of my closest friends, he coined that phrase. Pete was our right fielder. But we did not have a team book. But Coach Mack, man, he could rile you up. He could give some speeches.
That's what Eric Snyder always says he's phenomenal.
It's so good. And he gave, I still think for him, and he's been doing it a long time and gone to Omaha 5 times, but his most legendary speech, I think when his career is said and done, will be his, pre-Sunday Super Regional, before Game 3 speech. And I won't bore you with all the details of it, but let's just say it was the greatest I have ever been fortunate enough to sit in. And I don't think there was any chance we were going to lose, and going out and winning 20-2, I think certainly signified that and how we performed. And so, but once again, you know what? It's as we've talked about on this podcast here, man. That's him. That was him being real, and we were ready to fight. We were ready to do anything for that guy because we knew he poured everything into it. And in the end, if you do that with people, business, coaching, whatever, people will rally to you.
With your guys that maybe aren't getting as much time this time of year, how are you keeping them active?
Well, of course, you're going to work with them daily and all that. I mean, that's a given. But I think many times you have to just remind them that success or opportunities don't always happen overnight. And, last year, who ended up being our best pitcher was a 6-year senior outfielder who had never pitched in college. And we told our guys that as of game 20 last year, he had thrown 2 innings. And when we were playing, in the Sun Belt tournament last year and beating Coastal, who was ranked, and going to the semis, he threw 120 pitches. at 24 years old. He was an all-conference pitcher, and he never pitched ever. So my point is,
What allowed you to pull the trigger on that?
I just didn't care. First off, I watched him throw flat grounds every day, and I wanted to inspire some of the guys that I didn't think were maybe in the right spot, pitching wise. And I wanted to show them that, hey man, I will do anything to win if I think that a guy can do it. And his name's Rigsby Mosley, legend here at Troy, all times doubles leader. I think he's second all time in hits. Really cool story. Probably one of their favorite players in the history of this program. But I'd watch him throw a flat ground every day before practice, and he would always jokingly, because he pitched when he was in high school, and I think he pitched maybe his first fall when he got to college, which, like I said, 6-year senior, which was probably like 2004. He's so old. But I'd watch him every day, and one time I was sitting there, and it was like early February, and you know how it is in preseason scrimmages when you're a senior, and he was our starting center fielder, batted leadoff for third. Like, that's where we had him to start the year. He still led us in steals last year. He's 12 for 12. But I'm like, man, I need to make sure Rigsby is properly motivated. And I just went up to him about 9 days before the season, said, hey, your flat ground looks pretty good, and you've thrown 3 guys out at home. You want to come work with me on pitching? And he was like, don't mess with me like that. I go, no. I'll come throw to me. And he threw a 15-pitch flat ground. I'll never forget it. He missed one spot. He was like 14 of 15. I was like, man, that's pretty good. I said, you know what? I'll work with you again tomorrow. He was like, are you serious? I said, yes, I'll work with you again. So we did it for about a week. The week we were starting our season, I let him get on the mound like 2 days before the season. I'm like, let's just see what it looks like. He was like 87, 88. The changeup had real feel. He didn't even know how to grab a breaking ball. I'm like, oh boy, let's see what we can do. And anyways.
Where'd you start with him on the breaking ball?
I said, grab the horseshoe, grab it tight, and just pull your middle finger through. Pray for the best. No, no, but I'll tell you, it was crazy. And it's one of those blessing in disguises. Our 9th game of the year last year, we were playing Alabama, and we were really sloppy in the middle of the game. So we got down like 7-1. And I had given Rigsby a day where he was not playing. It was the first game he hadn't played during the year. He was just in a little funk. And I'm like, man, we're down 7-1. And you're never giving up on a game, but you're like, man, this might be the time. They got a lefty and righty coming up. So I called down to the bullpen, and I said, tell Rigsby he's going to go in. He's got 2 hitters. That's it. Tell him he has 2 guys, and we'll see what it looks like in a game. And as it goes, the first batter, his first 3 pitches were 90, 90, and 92. And he got a line out, and then he struck a guy out on an 80-mile-an-hour changeup. And the rest was history. I started him a week later. He went 2 innings, 24 pitches, 4 punch outs, and he set the doubles record in the same game. And we just built him. He went, 10 pitches, 20, 25, 30, 35, 48. And next thing you know, like I said, conference tournament, 7 2/3, just some of the most competitive baseball you've ever seen. I mean, it's a really cool story, but it resonates, and it does mean something to our players, because what you are at game 20 which is where we are. That's not where you're going to be at game 56. And you have to understand that. You have to believe that, and you have to work like that. If you don't work, it will not happen for you. The game does not reward those who do not devote themselves to it. And so we try to echo that all the time, and those who can rise up will, and those who don't, it means they didn't dedicate themselves hard enough.
Do you have a fail forward moment? Do you have something you thought was going to sidetrack you, but looking back now, it was maybe one of the best things that happened to you? I know with your mentality, you probably don't view it that way, but the thing, I like asking that because I think it just shows successful people have a different perspective on failure than non-successful people.
I won't say the job, but I'll give you everything. But there was a job in 2014 I thought I was getting. Okay, it was actually put out on Twitter. I'd gotten a job, and I did not get the job, but I really wanted it. And I loved my time at Middle Tennessee. It was nothing on Middle Tennessee. It was just a great opportunity, and I thought I had it, and I remember I didn't. And it was a tough pill to swallow. I mean, I can remember getting the call and it not being what I thought was going to happen. And I remember kind of being blah for a day or two, which never happens for me. It doesn't. And I remember being like, what in the world? Like, I didn't know I wanted that bad. But why? I have a great job. I work for the best human in the world, great program. They love baseball. What am I doing? I'm okay. And just by happenstance, I remember I was tracking 4 kids uh, in Cleveland, Ohio. The old, what is it, the NABC World Series up in, was it Euclid, Cleveland area?
Yeah.
And
The
I was
Black
staying with
Swamp
Jeff.
still called
Oh
the
yeah,
Black
yeah,
Swamp.
yeah, yeah. So I was staying with Jeff Duncan at his house, and I just remember I remember getting a call from Jake Boss, whose number I did not have, I did not know. And I remember the first call. It was kind of a funny deal because I just listened and I didn't know anything. I didn't think anything about Michigan State. I just didn't know what Michigan State was. I didn't have the proper respect for Michigan State. And I don't mean that like bad. I was like, I wasn't in that headspace. And you asked about my wife, and I just remember my wife going, why are you being this way? I said, what? She goes, do you not know what's going on there? Do you not know how successful they've been? Do you not know how great Jake Ball says, do you not realize how much Big Ten money's going in? Like, you should at least listen. And I was like, well, yeah, but I was just, and I didn't, and I had never been that way. And, I listened a little bit closer. I opened my mind up, and I don't think the things that had happened, you asked the question like about favorite spots, and I don't have a favorite spot, but I think Michigan State and being in the Big Ten and doing the things that we did during our time, I don't think any of these things happened. I think that was the right step for me as a coach. You hate it when you move on and players are still at places and you love those players and you miss like the interactions with them. But at the same time, when an opportunity is great, just as in life, like things do happen. And
Kids
so,
get it too. I mean, they get it. Like players get it. Like they understand.
absolutely,
They get it.
absolutely. And so, but I remember having no want and thinking about anything other than where I was at, and then having my mind reopened by whether it was friends or my wife at the time. I remember that is one of those few moments in my life where I was not in my normal headspace. And maybe being called on that was probably a good thing because you just don't really realize that you're doing it. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. We all have moments in our careers, whatever we do, where you go, oh, I wish I did this. I can't believe I called this. Like, I mean, we all do that. It wouldn't be human nature. I don't have the ego to say that every decision I've ever made is the right call, you know. Um, but at the same time, like, you have to have people in your circle that'll at least go, hey, why don't you look at this from a different lens? So I think that was probably certainly one for me.
Are you still doing hit workouts?
Oh yeah, oh
So
yeah,
you're still at it, huh? I'm getting too
oh
old.
yeah.
I can't. Too
I
many reps.
I'm still trying to. The one thing I've started to do a little bit more. I get on the Peloton. That thing's addicting.
I got
Uh,
two friends from high school. They love it.
oh, it's
They
great.
love it.
But no, I still try to get after it. I'm just trying to make sure I look better than Coach Wolgamon on my staff. That's the key.
It's not that hard to do. All right, what are some final thoughts before I let you go? I do appreciate you jumping on a Monday with me. I know these are like put out fire days for you all, so I do appreciate you jumping
Oh
on
shoot.
on with me.
Well, what's funny, and I know we joked a little bit before, but I think when you get on and you talk shop with friends on things like this, and and I'm sure people will watch this and they'll obviously know that we've known each other for a long time, but when you just talk and you put perspective to things, I think what you forget, and it goes back to the Dan McDonald 2007 talk that I was sort of referring to. In the end, all that we're doing, it's all about people. All we're doing is connecting. Yes, we're fortunate. We have the umbrella of baseball that connects us, but the reality is everything we're doing is just people. It's all interpersonal. And so, getting on here and like talking shop, like it's essentially like therapeutic, right? You talked about shrinking, like in our world, our Harrison Ford or Jason Segal, like that's other coaches, that's other friends, that's other mentors or people that you talk to. And so um, that's why I'm pumped that I got on here, because it's the mental reset that you need on a Monday morning when you go, hey man, last week wasn't good, but you know what, this week or this next day is going to be awesome, and the next day is going to be awesome, and you're going to laugh about the things that you thought were a big deal that really weren't.
All right, Skylar, appreciate your time. Always great seeing you. Tell Ben I said what's up. So good luck the rest of the year.
I most certainly will. Thanks so much for having me on, man.